I think in general, women are more oppressed than they've ever been in their life. There's the conservative side that says women are just supposed to bear children, stay in the home, submit, do whatever the man says. And then there's the supposed liberal side that says, well, women should be able to do whatever they want. Every time there's been a major move to help women, it has been after a major move to help black and white. Even if you go to the 1960s,
after the civil rights movement,
after
right?
the civil rights movement, right at the end of that, there was a huge wave of feminism.
That's when the hippies started and all
That's
that.
right. A woman is beautiful as a woman. We don't have to be a man. We don't have to act like a man. We don't have to dress like a man. We don't have to do the things men do to be worth something. The reason I dress the way I do is to show the world how free I am.
Hi, welcome back to God with Me podcast. We're so happy to be here again with you today. We are your hosts. My name is Sophia Benyon, and this is my cousin, Peyton Benyon.
Welcome back to our channel, everybody. If you're new here, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll appreciate it so much.
We are so excited today because, just like we are excited every time, but we are, no, for real, this time we're excited. No, I'm joking. We are so excited today because we have a very, very special guest on our show. First of all, it's her birthday, so please, in the comments,
comment down below,
wish her
happy birthday.
Sorry.
She's old, she's 39.
Yeah, she's very old, much older than us. But that's why it's so special, because she has so much wisdom that she can give us. And we mentioned her in one of our earlier podcasts.
Yeah, we did.
What
do women actually want?
What do women actually want? We referenced a message that she preached. And today we would like to dive much more into the topic of feminism and how that has affected us and how that has kind of the history of it and how we're going to move forward in that. And so we're so excited to have her on our show today, Sister Elizabeth Opal.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So we're going to just get right into it. I think the first thing that we kind of want to deal with maybe is some of the history of it. Maybe we can lightly touch on it and then kind of like an overview and then dive into it. So what would you kind of say, who would you say the first feminist was, or how did that kind of all get started?
Well, that's a very good question. And to actually pinpoint the first feminist may be impossible because I would say it was long before there's any written records.
It was actually named feminism.
Right. A lot of people pinpoint to a lot of feminists coming up around the 1800s, especially the middle 1800s.
Okay.
And really what happened is a lot of women began to feel like, well, who can say when they began to feel it, but they began to vocalize the feeling that they wanted to be more than just housewives and children raisers. But that maybe have been their words, but they actually had more of a desire to have the gift that is in them exposed to the whole world and not be limited.
Right, which makes sense.
So in the 1800s is a totally different world than what we experience now.
Absolutely.
Women weren't allowed to own property. Women weren't allowed to vote. Most women did not go to college. There was a few colleges that were open to women, but a lot of them were not. Things like if there was a divorce, the woman did not get her children a lot of the time.
I did not know that.
So there was a lot of things like that. Plus, the workforce for women when they did have to work was many times not conducive to liberation for women in terms of they would have to work for lower wages than men, even though they're doing the same work. And many times, unfortunately, in order for a woman to keep her job, she had to do favors for the men, especially sexual favors, to keep her position. And of course, you can imagine that with the growth of humanity, people got sick and tired of that, and there began to be an outcry. There's some people like Lily Black, which I thought was really interesting. When they unveiled the Statue of Liberty, she and 100 other women drove by in a boat and had a sign that said something along the line of their American women have no liberties.
Really?
But if we would go back even further than that, they actually started their first women's convention in 1848 was the first one. And it was actually, I can't remember exactly where it was. But anyways, while they were there, they wrote another constitution, because the constitution that the United States is based on,
A whole nother one.
A whole nother one that included woman is part of the Constitution and not just
Really?
men. Yes, and I can't remember how many people. 100 people signed that.
That'd be interesting
that
to
I would
read.
love to
Constitution.
read that.
Yes.
That's really interesting.
The interesting fact about this, and I don't want to jump where we're not going
You're
yet,
good. You're
Go
good. Go
ahead.
ahead.
Frederick Douglass
Okay.
All right.
was in attendance at that
No way.
that first women's convention.
No way.
That's really interesting because I was doing a little research too, and I read that the second wave of feminism, I'm not sure if I mixed up whether it was the first wave or the second wave, came out of the abolitionist movement.
Well, you know what? That's really interesting because while I've done research on this, every wave of feminism has come out of the abolitionist movement.
Are you serious?
Even
So
these,
it's interesting
even
how it's connected like
it's
that.
amazing. I couldn't
Why do you
believe
think that
it.
is?
Well, there are several things that I was thinking about today. One of them is that the woman realized that in order for them to get real rights for Black people, they needed the woman involved.
Okay.
And I think that has something to do
Are you
with,
saying all women or white women needed to be involved in the fight for
well,
freedom?
they needed all women, Black and white, to be involved. And I think that has to do with the fact that women tend to be more nurturing, more caring, see more of the aspects outside of money.
Okay.
And they felt like that was actually one of the huge pushes for the rights for women to vote,
Really?
because they wanted to be able to vote in laws that helped the Black people, and they realized they needed the woman to get on board for
I
this
did
needed
vote.
not know that.
I thought that was amazing
So
too.
would you agree with the fact then that, or do you think that another thing that united them is that they were kind of oppressed by a common group of people? Like you had the Black people and then you had the white women, and they were all oppressed by, not all white men obviously, but those were, the people who were oppressing them were white men. Like you think that kind of united them as well? Like they realized,
I think for sure it did, because I think when we deal with any issue of inequality, there's common ground there.
right?
And I think that I am not saying at all that the white woman dealt with the same inequality as the Black people, because
Right.
I don't think that would be a fair assessment.
Right.
But there was a common ground they found,
Uh-huh.
that you're oppressed, I'm oppressed, none of us are able to do exactly what we want to do in this life.
Right.
And they were able to come together on that common ground.
I would definitely agree with that. Well, we jumped right into connecting feminism to kind of racism and the history of that,
Black
and
struggle.
we definitely wanted to get to that, and maybe we'll come back around to it. But I was kind of wondering, since we're obviously Christians here, I think we should kind of just lay a good scriptural foundation for ourselves. What do you feel like the Bible has to say about feminism and women, and I guess what feminism should look like
So I think
in history?
that's a very tricky question, because the world has put an idea or a stereotype on what the Bible says that the Bible
Okay.
doesn't actually say.
You gotta kind of redefine the narrative
They've
in order to be able to
redefined the
talk.
narrative like they always do.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of so-called Christians have actually made a label for a woman's identity that is incorrect, and they've used scriptures to do so. So many people are turned off. Even some of your listeners might look at us and say, well, those women have to be oppressed,
Right.
because they're Christians.
Exactly.
Because what kind of conservative religion has done
That's right.
to women and their identity and role.
And I think it is definitely conservative religion, but I think it's religion as a whole, because there's actually two sides to it. There's the conservative side that says women are just supposed to bear children, stay in the home,
Right.
submit, do whatever the man says.
Yeah.
And then there's the supposed liberal side that says, well, women should be able to do whatever they want and dress however they feel and live however comes to their mind. And both of those are extremely oppressive. But actually, the only true religion that frees women is Christianity. It has been so all down through time.
It's true Christianity, right?
True Christianity, not the definition that the world has put out there. And I think that obviously the Bible tells us that women are to bear children and be keepers at home. And the Bible actually does say submit to your husbands.
Absolutely.
And those are all principles we believe in. But we believe that, and we also believe those would be a woman's desire
Naturally, right?
naturally to bear children and to be a good wife and those other things. But we also believe the Bible bears out strongly that there's so many other things that a woman does. In terms of, the Bible talks
Right.
about woman actually leading men into war, woman preaching, woman being leaders of their communities. And so we think that while a woman is a childbearer and a housewife and submits to her husband, that's only a very small part of her description of what she's able to do.
And the Bible doesn't really confine a woman's gifting to only that space, even
That's
though that is
right.
a part of her space.
That's right.
I think what we have to say, as I mean, we would never label ourselves as conservative as far as politically, right? But we do have conservative values. We dress conservatively, and we believe things that would be referred to as conservative, right? And I think it's very important for us who are in that position to explain, wait, this is what conservatism has said, that's not right. But then this is what liberalism has said, that is not right. And this is where women, this is where women are supposed to operate. This is what it should look like.
That's right. So we're actually very progressive
Okay.
in our thinking. We do dress what the world considers conservative, but who gave the label?
True.
Right.
In terms of our actual theology, in terms of our actual understanding of current events, in terms of our actual identity and gender identity, any identity, we're actually very progressive in that thinking. We're actually top of the line, ahead of the world in our understanding of man, woman, black, white, all of those issues,
And how those should work together.
and how those should work together. Yes.
It seems like, those who have been put in power will find anything, any place to draw a line.
That's
to try
right.
to cause division. And I feel like true feminism can never be fully expressed without the men. Like,
That's right.
you can't operate in those lanes of division and be a true feminist.
What's interesting to me about what the world calls feminism is this: they actually try to take away our difference from men, as if that's the problem.
As
Okay.
if we're lesser for being different
That's
from the
right.
men, right?
So in order for us to be valuable woman,
All right.
we have to change to be like a man, which is actually the very thing they say
That's so degrading.
they're mad about. They put that on us. And we're saying a woman is beautiful as a woman. We don't have to be a man. We don't have to act like a man. We don't have
Right.
to dress like a man. We don't have to do the things men do to be worth something.
Right.
We're actually the true feminists because we say, let women be women.
Yes.
Let us be who we are in the
Yes.
fullness of that beauty.
That's
So
so
you
good.
would consider yourself, you would say, I am a feminist, or...
I would consider myself a feminist, but I would not say that to everyone just like that without the qualifying factors, only because of the narrative that they put out about what a
Because you have to be
feminist
precise.
means.
Well,
with your
without
language.
explaining what a true feminist is.
But
right?
I am absolutely a feminist.
So what would you say is the male and female role in the true liberation of women? Or do you think women are still oppressed? And what does that oppression look like today?
I think that women are more oppressed. I think in general, women are more oppressed than they've ever been in their life.
That's an interesting
That's really interesting
view.
that you say that after just telling us about how in the 1800s, they couldn't vote, they couldn't own land, they couldn't.
That's right.
So has it become more covert, or what does it look
I
like?
think that it's more refined.
Okay.
Which
Because-
can make it worse, right?
Because I think in
You
the
can't spot it.
1800s, they knew there was a problem. And they attempted, good women and good men attempted to fix the problem. But I think you mentioned it was hijacked, and how they hijacked it was again making women feel like they were not enough unless they filled a stereotype that basically meant you had to be more manly. You could either be more manly or you had to become a sex object, which was the very things they protested in the later 1900s. They had like bra burnings because they didn't want to be defined by a bra. They didn't want to be a sex object for men.
right.
But then now they're telling us that if you're really liberated, you wear no clothes
Right.
or very little clothes,
Right.
and it's the men's problem if they can't deal with their sexual temptations. And they put the woman in a position where they have to be an object to be supposedly free. So I think that it has become more oppressive than ever before.
What's a example that you could say in 2024, this is something that shows how women are being oppressed? A physical example.
Well, there's a lot of things that come to mind. One of them, again, I've already mentioned this, is the objectifying of women that in order to be beautiful, they have to be a sex object.
I think Hollywood could have a large part to play in that, in
That's
projecting
right.
their beauty standards on women, things like that.
I think that what's interesting is that the reason I dress the way I do is to show the world how free I am.
Right. And it's funny that they just assume right away that that means you're not free.
And they actually try to turn it around and say,
complete
look
reversal.
at those oppressed women. But actually, I'm free because I know I'm beautiful without you seeing everything about my body.
Right.
My person, my face, my actions are gorgeous. And I don't have to show everything to receive that. And that's real liberty.
Right.
I think another way that we can see women are oppressed is there are women that want to bear children and be at home.
But they feel
But they're pressured
Societal.
that they have to have this career. They don't even want the career, but they feel pressured to have the career. And I'm not against a woman having a career, but I'm just
That's
saying.
not what all women's giftings are. That's not what all women wanted to do.
That's right. And so then they're being driven in a career where by time that they're done doing their schooling and getting where they want to be up the ladder, they're too old to have children, and many are living with regrets. Those are just a couple of things. I think we could see it everywhere.
right.
Absolutely.
Of you're saying of how women have been oppressed.
Women
even
are
now.
being oppressed right now, yes.
It seems like the powers that be, again, are always trying to force either this or that, like two extremes.
That's right.
You can't, there's no, I mean, nature is, you find a middle, you find a good balance. But if you listen to the narrative that's put out, if you listen to the media, if you listen to, like she mentioned, Hollywood or even politicians, you'll think either I have to be this career woman and I'm just getting a job and I'm just, I'm very successful and I'm climbing the ladder and I don't really have time to build a home, or I have to be a sex object. I have to have myself half dressed or whatever. But there's no what about if you want to, be a mom and raise children and have a home, but you're also called to maybe teach or something.
Right.
So you make a balance of both.
Right.
They just try to force you to two.
It's always the either or, right?
Right.
It's always one or the other. You can't be both. You can't be a smart, educated woman and a mom.
They make it feel like that, right? Like
You either are a mom that runs around barefooted and doesn't care
And you're
about your
ignorant
looks or anything,
yeah.
or you're this top career person that doesn't have time for children. They can't find the balance of the in between there. But I think you asked me, what is men and women's roles in the liberation of
Yeah.
women?
What should men do about this problem?
Well, that's why I found it so interesting that Frederick Douglass
Yes, I
was at
glad
the
that we're going
Women's
back to
Convention.
this. Was he the only man there? Do you know?
I don't know if he was the only man, but he was the only African American
Okay.
of both men and women.
So not even Sojourner Truth was there. Am I mixed up?
So Sojourner Truth was not there in the first one.
Okay. Where Frederick Douglass was.
I'm not for sure if Frederick Douglass was in the one that she was at, but I know he was in the first
Okay.
one.
Okay.
They said he was so excited because it lined right up with what he was doing about the black-white issue. And he was very happy to be there. I don't even know if he signed the Constitution. I don't think he did because I think it was only women that signed, but he was in full support.
So interesting.
So that was in 1848. In 1851, Sojourner Truth was at a convention. And while she was there, some white men came in to heckle.
Right.
And then she stood up and gave
that
her
when she gave
famous
the Ain't I a Woman speech?
Yes, Ain't I a Woman. And if you read that speech, it's just incredible the connection she puts with the way the black men were treated and the way she felt women were oppressed.
Right.
Again, they're not, I don't think we can compare the oppression except that oppression is oppression.
Right.
Right.
But I found it interesting that even the white woman, they were all evolutionists. That was their first thing they did. Of
Yes.
every major woman that made a difference in women's liberation that we know about started there, and it led on. And I feel like if we can deal with the black-white issue, for lack of a better term, we will deal with the gender issue.
I think you're so right.
Because I feel like when we deal with
When
the
you deal with one
inequality
oppression, right?
of black and white, because that's the big issue,
Right.
always has been the big issue in America.
Always has been.
That's what this country was built on.
When we deal with that, we will deal with the oppression
That's
of women.
so true.
And if you notice, every time there's been a major move to help women, it has been after a major move to help black and white. Even if you go to the
I did not notice
1960s,
that.
After the civil rights movement,
after
right?
the
then
civil
there
rights
was a
movement,
big wave
right
of
at the
feminism.
end of that, there was a huge wave of
That's
feminism.
when the hippies started and all
That's
that.
right.
huh?
Yes.
Right.
And what's interesting about that is, again, most of the time those things get hijacked, just like the civil rights movement can get hijacked, but they go together. They're like hand in hand walking together.
So what would you say in this time? What's going to prevent us from getting hijacked? How are we going to stay on track? Because this has been a problem down through history. Women have always been oppressed, and there's always been issues between. There's always been oppression, whether it was color or race or social status or economics or whatever. There's always been some sort of oppression, someone over someone else, someone being put down for something that was irrelevant, someone being lifted up for just as
Carnal reasons.
just as carnal of a reason. How are we, we want to make a difference, we want to help, obviously. How is what we're doing not going to get taken over and slowly phase out or turn into something else? How are we going to finally end it? You know what I'm saying? Like, we've been marching, we've been doing things, there's been this, there's been that, but it's still there. It's not, we haven't found a global solution yet. The world's not, it's not over. You know what I'm saying?
I think that I want to answer that question with this fact that I discovered, and that is that even in the women's liberation movements in the 1800s, all the way up to the early 1900s, the black woman and the white woman, they had a common cause, but they actually did not come together. I was doing some research, and they would have marches and parades and conventions, but the black woman had their own, and the white woman had their own.
So that
They
was
never marched together.
segregated.
They did not march together. And I think that the only way to end inequality on whatever front is for everyone to come together. And that starts, I think that it's going to have to start with the men.
So you think the true liberation of women has to start with the men?
I think true liberation of women has to start with the men, because if we look biblically and just look at the world,
Look around.
look around, men are first. Now, when I say men are first, I don't mean that they're greater or they're more important.
Absolutely.
Actually, one of my favorite things to talk about is how when God made the world, he said everything was very good. But when he was done with Adam, he said it is not good.
I love that.
That was good. We needed that.
Because he still needed a woman. So I don't mean to say that men are more important, but men do lead in this, are going to have to lead in this endeavor. And true women's liberation is going to come first with men leading the way, secondly with women following. But when I say follow, I don't mean in a nonchalant, careless way, but strongly following. And black, white, whatever color, whatever peoples, coming together for the cause. And in that, we will find true liberation. Until then, we will have nothing.
As long as we're each trying to fight our own little battles, our own little burden that we each individually have, but doing it separately,
That's right.
we won't arrive, you're saying.
We won't arrive. The mistake that most women have made in any women's liberation movement is that they try to delete the men. Unfortunately or fortunately, that's not possible.
Look at it. Can't happen.
We have to have them. They have to lead the way. We do have to follow, but we can follow aggressively.
The good thing is it's reciprocal. Like, we can't be liberated without the men. But really, can the men really be liberated without us?
No,
They're
that's
not
right.
good by themselves.
That's
so
the truth.
That's what the Bible
That's
says.
the truth.
So that's the good thing about it. It is reciprocal. And as we follow, there will be space made for us.
That's right.
Because we're needed and we both create space for each other. And our giftings create space for each other, male and female, and across all lines.
And don't you think that the acknowledgement of diversity is actually the key to success, is realizing, okay, I'm not a man.
Right.
You are a man.
And
You're
realizing that that's
different.
good, right?
So you can do this.
You have
I
different
can't.
roles.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually true liberation versus, well, you're a man and I want to be a man.
Right.
Yeah.
Or it can go on anything. It can go as simple as, okay, you're good with money. I'm not talking about
Right.
a wife and a husband. I'm just saying people in
Giftings
general.
and what you're good
It
at.
can be you're good with money. I'm not. So you help me with my money. I'll help you with this.
Mm-hmm.
If I have to be everything, I will be nothing.
You'll do nothing well.
But if I can do what I'm supposed to do, what I'm made to do, whether that be being a female or whatever gifting I have, then I'll really be something. And the job of everyone around me is to push me in what I'm good at and what I am. And my job is to do the same for everyone else that's with me too.
Brother Steve always gives the example of how nobody calls him when they need to fix a car because he's not a mechanic. And he says the fact that he's not a mechanic is not his weakness.
No.
It's not a weakness that he can't do it. That's just not what he does. And that's fine because there's somebody else that does that. And I think women should not feel, it's a weakness because they can't do, this or that a man can do. It's not a weakness. The man just does that. That's just not what you do. You have something
That's
else
right.
that the men also can't do, right?
That's right, for sure. One thing we can do that the man can't do is we can bear children.
Right.
Good thing they can't because they'd be moaning and groaning. They would die before they made it to the second month of pregnancy.
That is so funny.
We can't speak to that yet, but
But we're going to take your word for it.
yeah, we agree with you. We're sure they could not handle it. It's been wonderful to have you on the show today. We're so glad for the things that we got to learn. We learned a lot of new things today, and we hope that you've been able to learn some new things too. Feminism has been often misrepresented, hijacked, misinterpreted. It's been changed around. It's been showed to be something it was not supposed to be. The wrong women have been in charge, but we are so happy that today in 2024, we have Sister Elizabeth Opal and other good women that we know and associate ourselves with that understand what true feminism means and can lead us forward in the unity between men and women, black and white, any nationality, any line that we could try to be divided on, we can know that all oppression will be fixed when we can all unify together under some good, strong leaders. So we're so thankful for good, strong leaders. We're so thankful to have you on our podcast today,
you.
Sister Opal. And y'all know what time it is. Peace, love, and hair grease.